Hello, Linda.
Sorry, I'm still chewing.
Problem, you're allowed to chew. Starting to feel like I see you more than anybody else, even my own children. What's happening here? Right, so law of grace. So some of you just recently did the law of karma on Monday night and are probably still thinking about the law of karma and all the stuff that came up around that. So the law of grace flows from that. So tonight, I want to make this as a statement, and I'm hoping that I'll live up to it. The law of grace lightens everything. So while some of the other laws I've been working with, they seem more complex to the mind, and we have to face a lot of stuff. If we can access the law of grace the way it's intended, things can lighten. But it only lightens when we've dealt with all the stuff that comes with the previous laws. So in a serendipitous kind of way, these sort of laws kind of unfold on top of each other. I just want to see somebody who's supposed to join us. Oh, wait, Margot says she can't find the link. Let me just, sorry, I know she wants to join us. So let me just, she's clicking on the law of non-interference. Let me just, do this for her. I know it's very rude, but I know Margot wants to join us, so I just want to give her a chance to do that. Somebody doesn't have easy access. Oh, there it is. I found it. Copy link. And let's go here. Paste. So the law of grace is like this. Grace has got magic in it. It's like this magical ingredient. And when we can take anything and add grace to it, it's like, sorted. It's like taking it and saying, anything that was difficult, just add grace, sorted. Now that makes it sound really lovely and very simple, except grace is a very high level frequency. So it requires us to step into a high level frequency to access it. And you'll see the law that flows after this one is the law of vibration. And so you can start to notice how these laws start to work as a little bit of a storyboard. They kind of work as a way of a puzzle, I think is the best way to do it, is a bit of this piece and then of this piece and then this piece, and we add it all together. Hello, Margot, I'm glad you found us. So welcome, my darling. Right. Okay, so there's a few of us online. So as a starting point, I want you just to connect in with the word grace and check for yourself what color comes up, what thought comes up, what idea comes up. So something will drop in when you just connect with the word grace. And just to identify what do I connect with straight away? If I just invite myself to look at grace, what is it that comes up? And just to put that into the chat box. It's just to, whatever it is, don't try and interpret it. Don't try and make it into something more. Whatever comes up, whatever image, color, thought, memory, idea, and then just place that in the chat box. And let's just see what the linkage is, what the idea is that comes forward for you. Margot, ease. So glad you're here, Margot. Hugging lady, Amma. Yes, okay. Calm. Oh, Linda, blue butterfly. So play with that. Let's play with that a bit more. Kavita, a gift. Heather, a dancer. All right. So as we go through the law tonight, I'm going to keep asking you to go back to what this connection is to yourself, because what we need to do for us to access grace, you've got to find grace within you, beauty. So you've got to know that there's a place of grace within you. There's a space for grace in you. And when you can connect with the grace internally, you can bring grace to the world. Fairy dust, Nadine. I remember a recent conversation about fairy dust, so I like that. I like that a lot. So continuously through tonight, what's my place of grace? What's my connection to grace? What's my experience of grace? And whilst you may not believe me right now, you've all experienced grace. If you had to sit here and look back, I want you to connect with, if you can, the moments of grace in your life. And really just allow those moments to come forward. What are the moments of grace? The places of grace, the spaces of grace that you have sat in the center of, because you'll always sit in the center of grace. It's like there's something magical about grace. It's just and so just notice that for yourself. What are the ideas and the memories and the qualities of that start to come up for you? And if you're sitting there going like, I haven't, well, you have. You may not have captured them. You may not have honored them. You may not be allowing that to become a memory that you hold in, because we tend to hold on to the things that are crappy. We don't really hold on to the things that are great for us. So Margot's getting beauty, centered, loving alignment. These places and spaces of grace. So I'm kind of going to just give us a minute before I go to the presentation to just like almost invite all that into you. Just this awareness, this insight, this opportunity. The midlands, dynamic stillness within. Yes, it's in your heart. Grace is like very heart-centered activity. So grace, when we start to go into it tonight, is the highest form of love available to earth. So when we talk about there is only love, and we talk about love heals all, and we talk about the idea of love being that which is needed on earth at the moment, it's actually far more useful to start using the word grace, because love has a frequency on earth that is very contaminated by egoic love. The love of the human experience has got love that is controlling, love that is manipulative, love that is one-sided, love that is selfish. It's not really this experience of unconditional love. And that's okay, because we need that experience of relational love and love that seems to be something that hurts sometimes and all these sorts of things. But the love that heals is the sort of heart center, the sort of thymus center, the unconditional love that comes from the higher heart. And that is grace. And that's the highest frequency of love available on earth at the moment. It doesn't mean there couldn't be higher frequencies of love, but at this point, it's the highest frequency of love. Right. So let me share to the presentation. And let's start to see what comes up as we play. This is one of my favorites. I always say that. I mean, like they're all favorites, I suppose. Right, so if you need the chat box, or if you want to interact, you're more than welcome to use the chat box. There's few enough online that we can have a little bit more intimacy and conversation tonight, so that's also cool. So as a starting point, you can all start to, what's taking so long here? That's fine, Linda. The connection does seem to be a bit dicky tonight. So when you can come online, that's fine. All right, so the law of grace. So you can just start, as we kind of always do, with connecting in a little bit with what this image on this card is starting to give you. As we connect with the law of grace, just to bring those of you that haven't been part of everything so far, is we've worked with the law of flow, the law of karma, the law of non-interference, the law of clarity, and the law of detachment. And so these 5 laws are ones that I may refer to as ones that are important as part of getting to this place of grace. If you haven't done them, it's absolutely fine. It's just useful to start noticing this. So as a starting point tonight, as we sometimes do, just connect in with these cards that are on the screen and see which one jumps out at you. Which one's asking you to pay attention to it tonight? It could be 1 or 2, and it could be the word or the image. But what jumps out at you? What's the one that kind of says like, pay attention to me. Just notice me right now. Gratitude and clarity, says Angela. Cool. Clarity's got such a profound relationship with grace. It's a really important connection point to grace. I hear Astrid's phone tinging. I just want to switch it off. Go. Sorry about that. Okay, so gratitude and clarity for Angela. Margot, non-interference, isn't that a painful one? Gratitude and grace. Faith. So faith and grace, strong, strong connection. You'll see how it plays together. And clarity, gratitude. Okay, so gratitude has got a huge component of grace. So that's useful to start noticing. Faith, frequency, and grace. Okay, so just start there. So as we do with most of these calls, I want you to connect in with this card and start to just write down the words that stand out for you. What do you see? What do you feel? What's your awareness when you just look at this dragonfly card around the law of grace? There's no right, there's no wrong. Just start to know. Heather says, I love them all. Me too, Heather. They're my favorites at the moment. So just notice, and I'm going to ask 1 or 2 of you to come online and speak through what you are connecting with, what you are seeing in this card at this point. So who'd be willing to come online and just say what's coming up? What's the message you're seeing, hearing, getting from this card tonight? I'd like to share. Are you there? You'd be willing to come online and just share what's coming up for you. Royal jelly, says Margot. Connection to growth and purpose. Okay. Do you want to tell us what you mean by royal jelly, Margot?
Yeah, I can. So there's some around that shape that almost looks like a honeycomb, sort of the bee comb. Ugh, man, the honeycomb for me. So it's both in the color, the sort of vibrant oranges and reds, and I think that's also what drew me to gratitude. So the connection between the bee and royal jelly and something around purpose and growth. So yeah, the vibrancy of the color. So I mean, for me, what's really jumping out is just how centered that dragonfly is. I mean, it looks so not solid, but just so aligned and so centered. And it almost looks like it's kind of creating, there's a direction and a purpose and a balance to the card and the design.
Okay. It's beautiful. Remember, these cards, these paintings happened, and then we figured out what the law was. So it's a very interesting thing that the card in itself teaches, the dragonfly in itself. So Heather, you're seeing the design as blocks. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in it? If you're willing to, my darling. You're there, Heather. Okay. Okay, I understand. It's too noisy. Okay, I get it. So there's this very interesting thing, and this design down the bottom here, you're going to see a few times tonight, and I'm going to talk about it quite a lot. So firstly, you're going to see this hexagon shape, the six-sided shape, which does resonate with the honeybees, and you're going to see hexagons within it. But then you're going to see cubes. If you can look and start to see it in a 3D way, you're going to start to see these cubes. And there's cubes that seem hollow out, and there's cubes that seem that they're coming outwards. And so there's almost like an illusion of what you are seeing, and starting to notice the cube within there. We'll talk quite a lot about that. And as Margot has really said, is that how everything just lines up. There's no place of trying to control anything. It's just working from the center upwards. And as we just center upwards, we start to connect with that. And you'll see how that energy resonates as I start to talk about grace tonight. It's like, how do we center up? And so even as I just do that, if you had to start noticing, how do you take from the center of you and move up? And just start to connect all of those parts of you, and hold everything in alignment. Is Grace has this, oh good Margot, I'm glad. Grace has this way of needing different perspective. You need to see things from different ways, but stay completely centered and not scattered. You're trying to make things up, like it's just centered, and everything has a different way of being seen. And when we start to talk about grace, that's one of the most important things. Is the law of grace is the ability to create space for miracles. That is what the law of grace is all about. If you're wanting to access miracle energy, we have to work with the law of grace. And when I talk about miracles, we have real life miracles that happen. I mean, Linda is the miracle girl that is part of the call here. So some of you may know Linda's story, others don't. I'm not sure if it's fair for me to share it, but she calls herself the miracle girl because of the miracles that she has experienced in her life. And so we have real life miracles where somebody suddenly has a guardian angel that presents themselves to them, and they suddenly their whole life changes, or they have an illness taken away from them, or suddenly these things happen in their life and their life radically changes. And even as I say those things, if you sit and you go like, how does that even happen? Who does that happen to? Why does that happen? We need to start noticing that it is the law of grace that allows these things to happen. The next thing is that grace, being the law that underlines miracles is about seeing things differently. I can have exactly the same situation and suddenly I see it differently, and my whole life changes because suddenly I have a different lens, a different perspective. And so I've shifted that perspective. Grace is the ingredient for healing karma. So for those of you that did the law of karma on Monday nights and you're looking at how do I heal some of the stuff that's come up, it's grace. Now, if I had to take two people and one person gets a miracle healing and an illness suddenly disappears from them, and another person doesn't, it does not mean the one person believes in the law of grace more than the other. It means grace means it's okay to take it away from them because they've finished that karmic cycle. If the lesson has not been learned, if the karma is still in place, then that will not happen. So it's not so much one deserves it more than the other. One is finished a cycle, and so this no longer serves. And we need to really stop the mind from interfering around that being a good or bad thing. It just is information. It's data around it. And then I love this third line. So see what happens for you when you add this. Grace is an invisible act of kindness, compassion, mercy, and love. Grace is an invisible act of kindness, compassion, mercy, and love. So there's a couple of components in that. It's invisible. So invisible means it's kind of like the air beneath the bird's wings. We know it's playing a part, but you can't see it. You can't capture it. We can't put it in a bottle. You can't manufacture grace and send it out. There's something in the intangibility of it that holds it as grace. So it's this special thing of one kind person can shift your entire day. And the invisible act could be a smile. It could be just letting you in the traffic. It could be providing a space for you to speak. It's almost unintentional acts of random kindness, random compassion, random mercy, and random love. Unexpected. So it's very different when the person I expect to be kind to me is kind to me. But when it's somebody I didn't expect it from, can you see how that invisible component starts to become something that can alchemize things? So really allowing ourselves to experience this magic also requires us to be able to give it. What's the invisible acts of kindness and compassion and mercy and love that you give out to the world? And so there's a relationship with prayer. There's a relationship with the way I contribute to those that I do not know and those that I do know, so that's equally important. And this is not the act of guilt. So it's not giving the money to the guy on the side of the road because I feel ashamed of the fact that I have. That's shame. This is an invisible act to the person you don't like. So imagine you start being kind to the person that's not kind to you. You're compassionate when every part of you feels like, you just don't deserve it. There's a distinction there, and there has to be a genuineness and alignment that I'm not doing it so that I'll get rewarded, the law of karma. I'm doing it because why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I smile at someone? It's natural. It's just an essence of who I am. So let's pause there and just see what's coming up for you. What's your insights and awarenesses that are coming up for you as you start to just engage with this really, really beautiful energy, because it just is beautiful. Of the things that I've said, what have been your insights or BFOs or awarenesses or curiosities? So you can just place them on the chat unless you want to come online. Just what stands out for you as we do that. So as you just post that, I'll start just talking a bit more. There we go. Hello, Margot.
Hey, Taryn. So what came up for me is, so I get the connection to why I was drawn to the law of non-interference. So I mean, weird thing happened this week. There was an online auction and I bought something on the auction, and I really shouldn't. I mean, if I sit and think logically, I shouldn't have bought it. And so it's an animal, and anyway, and so it arrived, and it's kind of full of it's a brood mare, so she's pregnant.
Okay.
And yeah, when she arrived, she's got this dodgy leg and this dodgy eye, and I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that. And so now part of me kind of thinks, well, so how can I miraculously heal this horse, because I do believe in miraculous healing. And so really what's going through my mind is just, and I can see the connection to the law of non-interference. So I think for me, what's going to be interesting as the rest of the presentation unfolds is just to kind of see how can I be in grace and create space for miracles, and bestow kind of loving blessings on the world without wanting to change anything. So I think, yeah, good lesson for me. There's a reason I'm on the call.
I mean, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. It's not because I'm trying to change it. It's just because that's naturally what happens. But when I'm trying to change it, it's exactly that. Hey, it's the interference, it's the control. It shouldn't be this way. I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to make it better. And that's not grace at all. And so that's why this is the simplest and the most complex of laws, because of exactly that. I think it's a beautiful story. So your brood mare is a healing mare. She's here to bestow miracles on you.
I know she is. I know exactly, because I mean, I just thought I absolutely wasn't planning on bidding, and I just got this strong intuition that says, no, you've got to do this, and I did it, and Alan's like, what the fuck did you just do? And I'm like, I don't know, I just responded to the calling, so I know she is, and it's just crazy that she arrives and she's full of defects, for want of a better word. So yeah, thank you for that.
What's her name?
Oh, she's French. Her name is Callista Dubussy.
Okay. I just kept getting something quite feminine, so I wondered what it was. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. She's very feminine French girl.
Yeah, no, she is. Oh, she's cute.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So, anything else coming up for anybody that comes up? Kavita, what's happening for you, my love?
I'll share. Yeah, and I'm being drawn to be very vulnerable, so I'm just going with it. So I'm going through a very difficult time at the moment with my child. Well, he's not actually a child; he's a young man now, but also going through, obviously, traumas of the past, dealing with that, and as he grows and matures into an adult, and I'm impacted by that. So I think for me, I was this morning when I said prayers, and I actually asked for help. I asked for grace, because I decided that I can't do this by myself, actually. And all I did was stand there and say, please help me, because I can't do this. Send me the help that I need.
Okay.
And I received that. I received it. I received a recommendation for a psychologist that would be able to help him to get through whatever he's dealing with at the moment. And for me, that was just absolutely awesome, Taryn. So other than, having to work in normal corporate, and corporate has its own challenges, that was my day today. It was very difficult, but I received the grace and the compassion and the love and the kindness that I asked for, and when I saw this come up, I thought, I'd love to do it, but I've really had a day, and something said to me, this is what you need, because this is what I received today. I received grace, real grace today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we have to ask exactly that. We have to ask, but when you ask, you have to allow yourself to receive, don't you? And to be open to that. Because this stubborn independence that most of us have, that I'm fine and I'll figure it out myself and I'll do it alone and all of these things. And it is, if you had to scan the world, there's so much kindness. There's so many people that are supportive. There's so much love. But we don't hold on to it, do we? We remember the one irritation, the person that pissed us off, the thing that made us irritated, rather than all the grace that we receive each day. And it's a very interesting thing to start noticing that, especially you connected with the law of gratitude. So how do I become grateful for these acts of grace, as you've just expressed, which is beautiful to witness. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. So let's have a look at what grace means and start having a look. And so some of you are fans of words, and so you'll start to see, as if we look at the origin of the word grace, it means kindness. Now, kindness is not politeness. I just want to make sure that we understand that distinction. Polite is when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because I'm not allowed to be unpolite. Kindness is genuine. When you experience kindness, it's genuine. When somebody really, does something that is completely unexpected and unnecessary, it's just kind. And kindness has no bind to it. It doesn't have a so that you will thank me, so that you will think I'm kind, so that you'll do this. It's just an act of pleasure. It's an act of pleasing. So there's a pleasure to being kind. It's like, do you feel better when you're kind to people? Do you feel better when you're compassionate to people? Do you feel better about the world? And we just start doing these sorts of acts of kindness. This starts to elevate the frequency of grace. But we do need to be on the receiving end too. You do need to allow yourself to receive, as we've just spoken about. And then I love this historical usage of the word grace. Gratias and grazie. I don't say it as well as some people would. Yeah? But there's three meanings: a pleasing quality. So again, this relationship with it's pleasant. There's pleasure. It's pleasing. If you connect ever with anything that's pleasing, it's soft. It's gentle. Yeah? There's a favor or a goodwill in it. There's something, we've got a grace period to pay something back. There's, by the grace of God, this happened. By the grace of this, somebody was tolerant when I was insecure. Somebody was patient when I didn't deserve it. Somebody was compassionate when I was mean. These are graceful favors. Now, what I do want to bring up here and make sure we have a very clear distinction of, this does not mean not having boundaries. So this is not, if we go back to the law of karma that most of you have seen, this is not being nice because I'm scared that if I'm not nice, I'm going to get into trouble. That's not what we're talking about. So this is boundaried. This is, I'm caring for myself, but then I can truly experience grace. And then we've got this gratitude, this experience to be grateful for what is going on, which is part of grace. And that's why we have saying grace before a meal, saying prayers and doing these things. If we say grace before a meal, it's gratitude for the food. It's gratitude for the love that it was cooked with. It's gratitude for this experience. And so these things will start to give us components of grace. So what we're going to do is play a little game. What I want you to do is you've got 4 circles on the screen, 4 circles on the screen. So let's call this number 1. We'll call this one number 2, and this one number 3, and this one number 4. Underneath these circles are 4 components of grace, 4 images that describe grace in various ways. What I want you to do is to pick which one is standing out for you, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And just put on the chat box, which one are you picking? 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? I sound like a magician right now. Do you pick 1? Or actually an optometrist, what an optometrist does is 1 or 2 or 3. So Margot's picking 2, yeah. Oh, 2, 2, 2s, 3s, 2s, 3s, 2s. All right, so lots of 2s and 3s on the call. So let's have a look at it. When I reveal it, I want you to go to the one that you have picked, and I want you to start identifying what comes up for you when you see the image. What is the thing that's there? And then you can then let your gaze glance to move to the others and see what comes up for you. What are the words that come up for you? And we'll talk through each of them. So there we go. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as you just explore these images, I'm going to give you a moment of quietness just to explore the one that came up for you first and then the others. I want you to notice what you become aware of when you look at these 4 images that represent components of grace. If anything's coming up for you, want to share, you can put it on the group, on the chat, but otherwise just raise and sit with it and we'll see what plays out. Oh, look at that, Margot. You don't get beautiful stepping forward in love. You don't get more beautiful, do you? All right, so let's start to explore these a little bit. I mean, I imagine the overwhelming feeling you got when you saw these pictures is something to do with some kind of peace. So Leanne's got 1 is freedom, 2 is center oneself, 3 become a swan from the ugly duckling, 4 shine your light. So, oh, that's beautiful, Leanne. I get some goosebumps. Angela's got stillness in the calm lake, effortlessly moving with full presence. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else get anything you want to share before I talk through these? So let's start with 2 because many of you chose 2. So let's start with this. And so just as you gaze in this image, so Leanne's got center oneself, and I'm not sure, Margot, which one yours related to. But what's the sort of like aha-ness you get when you look at this? The sort of like, oh, I mean, there's going to be a feeling, and Grace has got a lot to do with feeling. But there's a real feeling of like union, like this, it's like this miracle place of like this very, very fragile, gentle, graceful seed holding this beautifully formed water bubble. Like it's awe-inspiring, isn't it? It's like a little bit of a wow. And so this is in the center of what you think of as fragile. There's a strength that just, you don't even begin to know. So the strength, exactly right, that this light strength, this paradox. You know? And obviously we've got water, and you can see all these beautiful little water bubbles. And so the emotion starts to come forward. I was just saying that Grace has got a perspective of feeling. You know? But when you look at these pictures, any 4 of these pictures, you're going to feel something. There's going to be like a beautiful, Nadine. So I don't know if you connected with the law of clarity earlier, but holding on to that centered stillness, like looking into the center of things. Yeah. So clarity and the ability, I mean, like, if you had to try and make this happen, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to force this to be what I photograph. The amount of patience it must take you to be able to make this happen. And I don't know if this photographer did that or not, but there's also these beautiful images that we get in life when there's just, you happen to be in the right place at the right time and you're paying attention and everything seems clear. And so you never know when a moment of grace is going to happen. It's not predicted, it's not constructed, it's not made up. You have to just be present and awake and aware and allow yourself to see it and be a part of it and experience it. I love that, the clear water of 2020. So hold on to that, Nadine, because you're going to see what's coming just now. And 2020 has got this big energy of 4. Those of you that did Soul Compass will see it or know about it. So then let's talk about this beautiful, elegant swan. Those of you that know my card deck well will know that the grace card is the swan. And so the swan it represents elegance. It represents love. You know, 2 swans that make this heart. It's got this really, really beautiful sort of I mean, I don't know many people who look at swans and don't go like, oh, you know, it's just peaceful. And the thing with swans that is really, really valuable to know is they go with the current. They go with the flow of the water. So the reason they look so elegant is, yes, they're paddling underneath, but they're not like ducks who are paddling all over the shore, chasing whatever. Swans have a tendency to flow with what is naturally the current. And when they need to move away from something, they will. But they can propel themselves using the current of the water. So the law of surrender, the law of flow, the law of moving with things. Okay, all right, Linda, no problem. Let us know if you can join us or if you come back. So I love also what Leanne's just said, the transforming from the ugly duckling. So if we look at that metaphorical story of the ugly duckling that doesn't fit in and doesn't know its place and doesn't know where it is, and one day turns into this magical swan, that everybody, you know, that whole metamorphosis of the ugly duckling to the swan is a graceful journey. It's not one of resistance. It's not one of arguing. And we're going to see this dancer, and she's strong, and she's elegant, and she's beautiful, and she's moving. Yeah, she's got this beautiful flowing energy to her. But there's a dedication here. There's a dedication to you know, if you want to dance in that kind of way, you've got to be dedicated to that which is important to you. And so grace is messy sometimes. What I mean by that is there's an element of work that allows you to find grace. That work is self-work. It's the work, the dedication of ritual, the dedication of practice, the dedication of showing up and repeating things over and over and over. Enough drills, enough things, and then grace happens because suddenly there's an alignment. So I have to push past everything that's awkward. I can't give up when I haven't dedicated myself to the experience I want to. There are many people that are envious of grace, but don't practice the things. Now, those of you that are doing Lifting the Veil or have done Lifting the Veil, you will hear me talk about this ad nauseum, doing the basics continuously, creating the routines and the rituals in your life. Practice and practice and practice. Grace happens then. So it's not, I don't like the statement, practice makes perfect, because I think the perfectionists in the room all need to hear that there's no such thing as perfection. But grace happens on the other side of dedication. Is when I'm dedicated, it all one day suddenly just lines up. So what are you dedicated to? What do you need to dedicate part of your energy in your life to? There's nothing scattered about grace. There's nothing non-committal about grace. There's nothing haphazard around grace. It lines up. It's intentional. Yeah. And then we've got this beautiful image of the sun rays coming through the clouds. And I do know it has an actual specific term when you see the rays of the sun coming through the clouds like this. I don't know what it is, but this is, I want to say the silver lining, the sort of being able to see the dark with the light, but being able to notice it, that through clouds are always going to be there, but there's also this beautiful sunlight that's always there. I remember years and years and years and years ago, I was much younger, and my mother went on an airplane and she went flying, and it was very cold and overcast and miserable weather. And she said to me, and it's going to sound obvious when I say it, that's why I giggle. She says, "Do you know above the clouds there's just blue sky? It's just light." And at the time when she said it, I said, "Oh, Mom, yeah, of course above the clouds is blue sky." But we forget that, don't we? Isn't it a beautiful, beautiful image to hold in mind? That even though all I might be seeing is the gray and the clouds, above that, behind that, there is light. There is the light, and that it can come through. So we could use the rainbow analogy if we wanted to with that. But that's not the one, is that what we're looking at is we do need to believe in more. You know, the sun will shine again. There is this idea of something coming forward that I don't know when the clouds are going to move. I don't know when there's going to be that little ray of opportunity for the sun to come through. But I do know it's there. I do know it can happen. I don't try and force it. I just, when it shows its head, I enjoy it. So start to notice as I talk through these 4 images, what are the essences of grace, the perspectives of grace, the allowances of grace, the truth of grace that is starting to come forward for you. The things that you most are like going like, oh, that's what I need to remember. Do I need to find more dedication? Do I need to find more stillness and centeredness and be awake and present? Do I need to go with the flow and trust my own evolution? Do I need to believe in the rays of light that exist even when I can't see them? What is it that is most awakening to me at this point in time about grace? So anybody want to share what's coming up for you at this point, or ask, or just illuminate? Dedication, Margot, exactly right. Just commit. Yeah. Anybody else seeing something in themselves or want to share? Stillness, Nadine, yeah. Grace requires centeredness, presence, stillness. Yeah. So those of you that are wanting to work with grace, all of it says Heather, I love it. It's one of the things is that you will see on the rays of light behind the clouds. Yeah, because otherwise it's a bit like Eeyore. We just believe that. Faith in a knowing. One of the things you can do is once you can print out this presentation, is you can print out these 4 pictures. Those of you that are doing the fuller course, I will load the full pictures onto the portal as well. So if you want to print them out and use them as part of your altar or memory or an anchor, or put them on your screens, or do something that reminds you that this is where you need to focus, is these images contain the richness of grace. And move you to that memory. So placing this as your screensaver or on your computer, so that every time you move out of a meeting, you can see that. Anchor yourself in the memory of grace. Anchor yourself in the possibility of grace. Allow yourself to experience that continuously. Yeah. Right. So at this point, I want to introduce you to Archangel Metatron a little bit. But before I do that, are there any awarenesses or questions or thoughts coming up for anybody that you'd like to come online and chat about? So anybody have something you want to ask or share? Otherwise, I'm going to assume you're all in a deep state of receptivity. Yeah. All right. So Archangel Metatron, some of you might know Metatron quite well. But Metatron is a very, very expanded being of light. If you think of pillars of light, and some of you might be skilled enough, think of this rays of light coming through the clouds. I mean, I often will be driving along, well, not as often as we used to, and I'd say to Eric, I just love that moment where you can just see the sun catch, and you can almost just see the rays of light coming to Earth. And Metatron is essentially these rays of light. He's like a column of light, a pillar of light. Yum, I love Metatron. It's Margot. So Archangel Metatron is the creator of all known light on earth. He is the custodian of ascension. I say he because it's a presentation of himself, governs the release of light to earth. So when we talk about an activation, or we talk about a download, or we talk about, can you feel the energy uprising? This is Archangel Metatron that's working with the collective consciousness and what Earth can handle. And the more of us that shift and rise, the more can be released. And then that creates another wave and another wave. And that is the ascension process. And he uses the sun as a process to do this. So grace has a direct connection to the sun, sunlight. So whilst we might see a lot of the divine feminine wisdom and those sorts of things happening with the moon is not necessarily the place that we go to for grace. We go to the moon for illumination, for clarity, for seeing the darkness, for facing that which needs to be faced. But when we go to the sun, we receive power. We receive. I mean, I used the metaphor in one of the previous talks, is that if I go outside, I don't need to try and receive the sun. I just receive it, like it's there. But if I do too much, I'm going to get hurt. So there's a respect for the sun, is there not? There's a way of noticing that. So we need to know our own tolerance, our own relationship with it. But Archangel Metatron, when you connect with the sun or the Helios energy, which is, Helios is the god of light or the god of the sun, you can work with Metatron through that. And so images of the sun. And so we're starting to see a lot of the sort of, solar eclipses and those sorts of things. And when we have a solar eclipse, it's a way of bringing perspective. The sun has a way of releasing energy to Earth. We know plants, animals, everybody needs sun. We know the relationship between countries that don't get a lot of sun and depression. And so the karma of that, and to what extent do you, when last did you go and sit in the sun? Now, you don't need to go and suntan, that's not what I said. Finding that sunny spot in a room, feeling the warmth of the rays of the sun, that just brings you to the perspective of oneness often. So Metatron is the source of all universal information and knowledge. And he does that through Metatron's cube. So those of you that work with sacred geometry, I'm going to take you through a little bit more about Metatron's cube right now, and you'll see how this all comes together. Metatron's cube is the map of consciousness. Everything that exists on Earth comes from a platonic solid, and Metatron's cube is the symbol for drawing all the platonic solids. If you're curious about sacred geometry, you can give me a shout. Margaret says, I have Metatron and Lady Nada candles on my work desk, and they definitely help me get through very busy days. Yeah. So Lady Nada deals with karma, Margaret. I'm sure you remember that from Monday. And Metatron deals with grace. So great combination, putting them together. So we said he's responsible for the ascension of Earth. And so he'll be guiding the meditation tonight. But I introduced you here to him because it's useful to start seeing this, and I will send this out. So this is a powerful symbol to draw. To draw this is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes quite a lot of things that eventually get rubbed out to draw it, so you can color it in. But essentially, when you have a look at this, and I'm going to just give you a very high level insights into Metatron's cube, there are 13 circles that become what we call the fruit of life. Those 13 circles, you'll see one in the center, then there's 6, and then there's another 6. It's 13. 13 is the feminine number. So everything in the earth, on Earth typically has 12 plus 1. 12 months, the plus 1 is you. 12, there's so many essences of 12, you can go and have a look at it. And 13 is the divine feminine number. So when we have a look at 13, we'll come back to that now. In sacred geometry, any line that is curved is feminine. Any line that is straight is masculine energy. So these 13 circles form the basis of the map of consciousness. If this is overwhelming you, just let it go and we'll come back to what's important now. And these lines is the center of every circle joins together to form these lines. Center of every circle joins together to form these lines, and that's the masculine energy. And this is the map of consciousness. If you want to start working with grace, this is the symbol. If you wanted to create a healing grid for grace, if you wanted to create a way of working with grace, if you're wanting to meditate around grace, and go and color this in, draw with it, see what manifests itself for you as you're doing that. Now, Metatron's cube, it's a little bit of a, why is it called Metatron's cube? Well, there's the cube. So I don't know if you all had the same, there are other cubes in here as well, and you're going to see the same dynamic of the picture that you're seeing on the right. So the way the dragonfly cube presents itself as the cube. So starting to work with this cube energy on Metatron's cube starts to give us some structure, starts to give us some form. And when we start to look at grace, we need to start understanding, what does any of what I'm talking about relate to when I'm talking about grace? Yes, Nadine. I know, my darling. Sacred geometry is, it's a joy. It's an absolute joy and a gift. And it's been amazing to even see what's been presented through these talks around sacred geometry. I'm sure Angela will agree. She's also a big fan of sacred geometry. Okay. So now, she's smiling there. So now let's have a look at this cube, and I hope you can all see the cube, yeah? You can get that same hexagon outline, but can you all see the cube that exists within that? You may need to adjust your eyes to 3D-ness, yeah? And hopefully you're starting to see the overlap of these images and starting to see the connection between them. So let's have a look at numbers. And you're going to start getting really, really curious about faith, grace, and numbers, and how they all come together with this. When we think of the cube, the first number we think of is 4. Now, remember I said there are 13 circles. If I collapse 13, I get to the number 4. So again, we've got the 4 energy that's starting underneath. The whole basis of this is 4. Those of you that have done the soul compass this year, you know that 2020 is a 4 year. So we've got a lot going on around 4, and 4 is everything to do with everything that's going on a practical, grounded, stable on earth. Everything that's to do with process, systems, rules, you know, the 4 elements, the 4 poles, we get north, south, east, west, we get everything to do with structure on earth exists in the number 4. So it gives us a foundation and gives us stability. It gives us practicality. It gives us a logic and a way of working with earth. But now there's a little bit of an illusion when we look at the cube, because most people think of the number 4 with cube, but actually there are 6 sides. When we have a look at the number 6, which you will see 6 on the outside, 6 on the inside. The number 6 is the number for unconditional love. This would be called grace. The number 6 is about empathy, compassion, humanitarianism, connecting the dots, oneness. This all resonates in the number 6. So if I start putting this together for you in a way of starting to see how the energy builds through all of this, the number 4 of everything that's practical on earth requires unconditional love. Everything that is practical on earth requires unconditional love. This is called grace. When we add everything practical on earth to the unconditional love of grace, we get to the number 10, which is 1, which is new beginnings. So how do we start again? How do we open up to something new? How do we create miracles? We have to take everything that we're doing and add grace. Then we get something new. So the alchemy of creation, the ability to raise something to a new place that I can experience it in a different way, is where I take something and I add grace to it. I think this is quite fascinating, so I hope you're all enjoying that as much as I do, but maybe I'm just a sacred geometry and numbers freak and you're not as enjoying it as I am. But this starts to give some of the language to why we feel things when we work with these pictures, that we start to see the oneness, and we've got the 4 and 6 energy all in here. So if I had to put it into something practical for you, grace is something we add. I want to say that again. Grace is something you add. Grace is an additive process. It's not about taking anything away. It's about, what do I have to add to this? So Kavita's example earlier, my son is battling, what do I need to add? I might want to take away his pain. I might want to take away his suffering. I might want to take it away, but I can't. So what do I add to it? When I can add something to it, it creates possibility. And so grace is something I add to anything I don't like, anything I'm struggling with, anything that's painful, anything that's difficult. If I can add in the components of grace, that addition of grace to it creates possibility. Creativity with so much possibility, magic. Exactly right, Nadine, exactly right. Is it making sense what I'm saying? Anybody lost or anybody needing some clarity on what I'm saying? I really am hoping that you enjoy it as much as I do. So, if we take grace to be this additive process, this ability to add something, what do I need to, if I've got conflict, if I've got war, if I've got famine, if I've got pain, if I've got loss, if I've got insecurity, if I've got difficulty, if I've got struggle, if I've got poverty, what do we need to add to it for it to alchemize? If there's a situation that is in conflict, if there's people in conflict, adding more conflict is not going to change anything, but adding empathy could. Adding listening could. Adding compassion could. Adding support could. Adding allowance could. The thing that I add can transform it. And the law of karma, the law of cause and effect, is asking us to take accountability for what we add. What are you adding to the situation? We take coronavirus. How are you adding to it? What are you putting in the pot? Are you adding love to everybody in it, even those that you don't agree with? Allowance, empathy, insight, non-judgment. Or do you add your own healthy dose of fear, judgment, insecurity, opinion? And it's okay if you do. You're just human. Yeah. So this is why grace, if I talk about it as an additive process, does that resonate for you? I need to start noticing, what do I add to this for it to shift into the light? What do I add to this for it to become something flowing? What do I add to this for this to become something that's a miracle? And this is how you and me and every person around on the earth becomes a miracle maker, is we take responsibility for what we contribute, what we add. And when we look at grace, grace is, it's an additive process, it's an opening. So it is this process of holding your hands out and open. So when you want to work with the law of grace, holding your hands open, and you'll see this in places of praise. When people are in a place of grace, they open up, they hold their hands out, they pray for grace, they contribute grace. If I want to give you grace I need to have open hands, open heart, open mind. So grace is an opening experience. If I'm walking around with clenched fists, there's no place for grace. There's no place for grace. If I'm walking around closed, there's no place for grace. And I want you to all do that for yourself now, is I want you to sit with your hands clenched and just notice what happens as you clench your hands. Just sit with it for long enough to notice what happens in your body, what happens in your mind, what happens in your experience when you sit with clenched fists, when you close your hands up. I can't predict what happens for you, but I know what happens for me. And I start to close up. I start to become scared. I start to worry. I start to feel small. Does that resonate for anybody? So you just kind of sit there with your hands closed. What comes up for you? What's the experience of closing your hands up like that? Your heart closes. Mine too, Leah. Anybody else having an experience? If you're having the opposite experience, that's also perfectly okay. Let's play with it and see. You also probably feel a bit more pain, a bit more anger, a bit more frustration, anxiety creeps in, says Heather. Yeah, so those of you doing the emotions masterclass, we've been dealing with anxiety this week. So how do we add grace to anxiety? Yeah. Anybody else having experiences that come up for you? Tense. I imagine you're not very creative, not very solution orientated, very withdrawn. Yeah. Now, if I sit with my hands closed, and it's metaphoric, but you can look in your day how often you close up, how often you're tensing up, how often you walk into a room and there's about to be conflicts and you hold your hands closed. You bolster up, you prepare yourself for the fight. You're going to go in, you're going to do your thing. You know, the power pose. Power is the opposite of grace, just by the way. So now what I want you all to do is I want you, and you're not on camera so you can do this, I want you just to close your eyes, hold your hands out and open, try and open up your chest as you do it. And I want you just to sit in that pose for a minute or two. And just allow yourself to notice what that experience is like. And make your hands soft. Infinite, says Margot. It's like abundance. As the rest of you just become aware of the change, just notice what it is, and you can also share what shifts for you. Your breathing deepens.
No! What are you mad?
So for me, my jaw softens and my ears open up. My heart opens up. I can see differently. there seems to be a relationship with the sensory experience that shifts for me. I can see clearer, hear clearer, feel deeper, allow more to move when I do this than if I do this. Anybody else having an experience that you can feel that shift? Your hands are tingling. Savasana. So awesome. It is Savasana. Okay, so you can start to feel that Reiki energy, that universal force of energy that allows flow. We have meridians that move from our hands to our hearts and from our heart to our hands. And so we can create gifts of life with hands. If you ask to receive grace and then place it on your heart, place it on your mind, place it on any part of your body that feels like it needs support, needs to receive love. We have the most remarkable healing available in us. And this is why healing and grace and hands-on healing and all the experiences of miracle healing that can happen comes from a place of grace. But there's a receiving and a giving to it. I need to be able to receive it and give it freely. And if I'm giving it to those that are walking around tense, are they going to receive? If you're walking around with your hands like this, closed to the world, and I send you grace, kindness, compassion, empathy, care, will you get it? Probably not. So you've just kind of discovered your own key. Is anybody having a different experience? Anybody sitting there going like, okay, I don't get this at all. It's not working for me. I'm not like feeling this. If you are, you can let me know, because let's just play with what that is. But otherwise, I imagine it's quite universal for most of us. And that's why when you meditate, meditating with your hands open, or at least doing one of the mudras that has an open palm, allows you to be in a higher state for receiving grace. Just to be a little bit clearer around it, this is a very different energy to this. So try that now. Go to this place that you've been going to. We've got this opening, this space of movement, of allowing your hands to become these tools. And when you're ready, I want you to bring your hands together in the center of your chest, which would typically be the place of prayer. And just notice what happens when you do that. Let's become aware of what that energy does. When we put our hands together in this place of prayer, it's a oneness. It's a connectedness. It's a centeredness. It's a place of pulling everything together. This is the place of one. Open hands, energy flows to the earth, transformation. Okay. So it's really useful, Bharat Namaste. Yeah. It's really useful to know what I need to be doing that can create the energetic connection point with these rays of light. Perfect, all right. Okay, perfect. You're holding grace with your hands together. Now, if I went from this to this, dear God, please will you help me here? There's a great gift in going first to this place of grace and then holding it. Quite magical, isn't it? Well, I like it. So when I open for grace, I pray for grace. I want to receive grace. I want to offer grace. What do I need to add? What do I need to ask for? Acceptance, love, compassion, kindness, empathy, care, willingness, softness, boldness when I need to be. What do I need to receive for it to transform? And those of you that did the law of karma on Monday night, you know, we had the yin yang symbol. So doing more of what I've always done is going to give me what I've always had. But when I add in what I've never done before, so when I pray for grace, it's what have I not done before? What do I need to see? So this is the law of grace. And so what we're going to be doing is going into a meditation where Archangel Metatron is going to guide us through a meditation to experience grace. And I recommended 3 crystals that you may have. If you don't, clear quartz is great, or Herkimer diamond is also great. But these 3 crystals are the ones I recommend for working with grace. Danburite, phenacite, or phenakite, depending on who you listen to, and kunzite. These are all high vibrational crystals that are all about infusing light, adding light to. When I first started doing the crystal masterclass, phenakite came forward very strongly. And when I channeled it for the first time as to what its purpose was and what it was about, it kept asking me to plant it. To the extent that Metatron actually guided a whole ritual around planting phenakite in earth and letting phenakite go into the earth and into water, place phenakite in water. It's a bit of an expensive habit because that's what earth needs, is this infusion of light, this adding process. So let's add light to that which is dense. So if that's something that resonates with you, you can play with that. I'm happy to send the ritual to you if you want it. But you can see the sparkliness of danburite. So danburite's a very high ascension stone. This is my piece of danburite that I've got here, and I'll be working with Metatron tonight. So if you do have any of these crystals, they're awesome to work with. Kunzite is the crystal of joy. So how do we add joy to everything that we're doing? So I'm going to take you through a meditation. You're welcome to close your eyes if you feel like you'd rather have a look at this Metatron's cube and use that as a place of focus. You're welcome to do that. But we're going to invite Metatron to take us through a meditation. Does anybody want to ask or share anything before we go into that? Anything coming up for anybody that you'd like to reflect on or share or ask about? Are you all in quite a receptive place? Okay. All right, let's go into the meditation and see where Metatron takes us. So enjoy the trip. When we come back afterwards, we can just share what it is that we've received tonight before we end off. So if you're asleep, then good night. But otherwise, I look forward to hearing. And try and sit upright if you can to receive it. But just notice, and if you can, try and sit with your hands open for this meditation, to sit in that place of grace, to allow that to move through you. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, so just soften your body, holding your hands open. You can rest them on your legs if you'd like to, if it feels more comforting to rest them somewhere. But make sure your hands are open for this meditation. As you feel your hands open, become aware of your hands. Start with your thumb. Become aware of the thumb. And if you feel the need to move it around, dislodging any energy that has been trapped in your thumb, you can do that. Just notice where it needs some attention. We don't give a lot of attention to the movement of our hands. Often we take them for granted. So how does your thumb want to be massaged, moved? What needs to be released in there? Just notice maybe you need to pull the thumb in each hand, just letting your thumb release all that's there. And when you finish with your thumb and it feels like it's in a place of stillness and softness, move to your pointer finger. Do the same thing. Release any tension, any static energy, anything that is holding that finger in place. Just move it and play with it. When you're ready, you can move on to the middle finger. Just move, massage, flick, release any tension, any energy. And take your time, but when you're ready, move on to your ring finger. Just noticing. If you have rings on, you might want to take them off, or you might like them being there. But just notice your hands. Notice that finger and what it needs. And then lastly, your baby fingers. Release any tension, any pent up energy that is held in your hands, in your baby finger. And then focus on your hand as a whole. What does your hand need? How do you release, massage, activate, change the energy of your hands? Just, you can do whatever you need to. Rub them together, flick them, hold them, massage them. Take some care in giving attention to your hands tonight. And when you're ready, hold up your hands and look at them. You can open your eyes and just look at your hands. Soften your gaze as you look at your hands with love, appreciation, care, curiosity. What do you see when you look at your hands? What do you feel when you look at your hands? What stands out for you? Move your hands around. See the front, the back, the sides. You can look between your fingers. You see energy vibrating there. You feel your hands coming alive as you look at them. What happens for you when you pay attention to this thing that you take for granted? These very tools you have for creation, these tools you have for holding, for hurting, for writing, for feeling, for working with, for massaging, for fixing, for doing pretty much everything you need to do. These things that you take for granted. What happens when you pay attention to them? You notice. Say thank you to your hands. When last did you thank your hands for all that they do for you? As you look at these things, these tools, this part of you, this magical, beautiful part of you, with love and appreciation, you may be able to step into the awareness of what a miracle you are, of how perfect you are, how you have everything to create whatever you want, that you hold within you the power of love, curiosity, connection, will, compassion, kindness, empathy, care. As you allow your hands to rest, just receiving, opening, allowing, with the gratitude and appreciation for their magic. Just become aware of the rest of your body that extends from your hands, your arms and around your neck and your shoulders, your spine and your legs. This magical vessel that you call a body. It has power and grace. You are a vessel for peace. You are a vessel for love. You are a vessel for transformation. You are a vessel for mediation. You have the power within you to change anything. You have the power within you to transform all matter into light. There is magic in you. And I hope you remember it. I hope you can feel the tingling, the sheer knowing that you are light embodied in this vessel. That right at the very molecular structure of you, you are pure possibility, the impossible made form. As you sit with your hands open, your eyes closed or open, whichever you prefer, connecting with this energy of divine possibility within you, become aware of the movement you have with the air and space around you. Just notice your body and how it can move in time and space. Let your body just move in alignment with the energy around you. Softly, gently. Your body is being held and moved naturally. There's no force. Just gracefully moving, elegantly flowing, naturally aligning, opening up to being one with all that is around you, in you, through you. As you do this, start to feel columns of light entering in your crown chakra, coming in through your stellar gateway. Just a beautiful pillar of light connecting in with your crown chakra. Open up to receive it. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal of light and a vessel for grace. Let that light move into you, infuse in you, embrace it. Let it move into all the parts of you that want to embrace it. Softly allowing yourself to become one with the light. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. You're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. When you feel ready, take your hands and place them on your heart center, connecting these miracles of creation to the place of expansion. Just notice the experience of oneness with your light as you place your hands on your heart. And create a minute of silence as you just allow your angelic team to support you in your own healing, to receive the grace that you need tonight. Just receive. When you're ready, hold your hands out in front of you, opening out to the world around you as you allow grace and light to flow through you. Imagine it being sent out to every animal, being, person, water, every living creature that is open to receiving grace. Just imagine it flowing through you, through your hands, through your heart, out into the world, those that you know and those that you don't, those that you love and those that you don't, those that you're willing to support and those that you don't. Let it just flow. You are a vessel for grace. And when you're ready, you can bring your hands back to center. Place of connecting with the oneness in you. And come back to the here and now, knowing that you're a portal for light and a vessel for grace. Namaste. Right, so welcome back, everyone. Those that are here. Isn't that beautiful? You're a vessel for light, a portal for light and a vessel for grace. So beautiful. Does anybody want to say anything before we end off tonight? Anybody need to express anything more or ask anything? Okay, so we'll end off here in this very, very, very beautiful place. And remember, the meditation is there for you to repeat as many times as you want. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being you. Sending you lots of love. Namaste.